This is the story of Marcus, a self-made billionaire who thought he had the world figured out. Marcus built his empire from the ground up, a titan of tech who rarely had a moment to spare. His days were a whirlwind of meetings, deals, and international flights. Back home, in the sprawling mansion he bought for his aging father, life was supposed to be simple. His father, Arthur, was his rock, the man who had sacrificed everything for him. Now, with Arthur's health declining, Marcus had hired the best care money could buy, including a live-in maid named Clara. Clara came highly recommended. She was quiet, efficient, and seemed dedicated. Marcus had interviewed her himself, albeit briefly between conference calls. She seemed perfect, almost too perfect. He paid her a generous salary and provided everything she needed, assuming his father was in the best possible hands. He called home every night, and Arthur always sounded content. "Clara is a fine girl," he'd say. "Takes good care of me." Marcus, satisfied, would hang up and dive back into his work, convinced he had fulfilled his duty as a son. One Tuesday, a major deal in Singapore collapsed unexpectedly, leaving Marcus with a rare, unscheduled block of free time. Instead of rescheduling his day with more work, a strange impulse took over. He wanted to go home. He wanted to surprise his dad, maybe take him out for a drive, something they hadn't done in years. He didn't call ahead, wanting the joy of the surprise to be genuine. As his driver pulled through the grand iron gates of his estate, Marcus felt a pang of guilt. The perfectly manicured lawns, the gleaming windows. It was a house, but was it a home? He hadn't spent more than a handful of weekends here in the last year. He quietly let himself in, the silence of the marble foyer greeting him. He expected to find his father in the library, perhaps napping in his favorite armchair. He walked past the living room and heard voices drifting from the back garden. It was his father's voice, but it sounded different. Lighter. It was laughter. Genuine, hearty laughter that Marcus hadn't heard in a very long time. And then he heard another voice, a woman's, joining in. It was Clara. Curiosity piqued. Marcus crept towards the large glass doors leading to the patio, careful not to be seen. And then he saw it. The scene before him made him freeze, his briefcase slipping from his numb fingers and landing silently on the plush rug. His father, Arthur, was sitting not in his expensive, state-of-the-art wheelchair, but on a simple wooden bench. His face, usually pale and weary, was flushed with color and life. And beside him, holding his frail hand, was Clara, but that wasn't what stunned Marcus. In Clara's other hand was a worn, leather-bound book, his mother's poetry journal. After his mother passed, Arthur had locked it away, unable to bear the pain of reading her words. Marcus had tried countless times to get him to open it, to reconnect with her memory, but his father had always refused, the grief too heavy. Yet here was Clara, her voice soft and clear, reading one of his mother's poems aloud, and his father was not just listening. He was captivated. A tear traced a path down Arthur's wrinkled cheek, but it wasn't a tear of sadness. It was a tear of fond remembrance, of joy. As Clara finished the poem, Arthur squeezed her hand. "Thank you, my dear," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "It's like she's here with us." Clara smiled warmly, a genuine, compassionate smile. "She is, sir," in every word. Then she gently helped him to his feet. Not to guide him to his wheelchair, but to the small patch of garden they had apparently been tending. There were fresh trowel marks in the soil and small, budding rosebush, his mother's favorite flower. Clara wasn't just a maid. She was a companion, a friend, a healer. She was tending not just to his father's physical needs, but to the wounds on his soul that Marcus, with all his money, had no idea how to mend. Marcus stood there, hidden behind the curtain, a lump forming in his throat. He had been paying Clara to be an employee, a caregiver. But she was giving his father something far more valuable, her time, her kindness, and a reason to smile again. She had reconnected him with the memory of his wife, not as a source of pain, but as a source of love and light. She had brought life back into the hollow mansion. In that moment, Marcus realized the profound poverty of his own wealth. He could buy anything, but he couldn't buy this. He couldn't buy the genuine human connection that Clara had so effortlessly forged with his father. He had been so busy building an empire that he had nearly forgotten how to build a relationship. He quietly backed away from the door, his surprise visit taking on a whole new meaning. He didn't want to interrupt them. This moment was too sacred. He went back to the front hall, picked up his briefcase, and walked back out the front door. He got into his car and called his assistant. Cancel everything for the rest of the week, he said, his voice firm. I'm staying home. Later that evening, Marcus joined his father and Clara for dinner. He didn't mention what he had seen. Instead, he simply watched and he listened. He saw the easy rapport between them, the shared jokes, the quiet understanding. He saw his father's eyes sparkle as he talked about the new rosebush. After dinner, as Clara was clearing the plates, Marcus stopped her. Clara, he began, his voice softer than she had ever heard it. I don't think I've been paying you enough. Clara looked confused. Sir, you are more than generous. Marcus shook his head, a small smile playing on his lips. No, I've been paying you to be a maid. But you've been a miracle worker. There's no salary for that. He then turned to his father. Dad, I'm sorry. I've been so wrapped up in my own world that I've been neglecting what's most important. Arthur reached out and placed a hand on his son's arm. You gave me this house, son. But Clara, he said, looking over at her with immense gratitude, she helped make it a home again. From that day on, everything changed. Marcus didn't just visit. He was present. He learned to tend the roses alongside his father and Clara. He sat with them in the evenings, listening as Clara read from his mother's journal, his own tears now joining his father's. The vast, empty mansion began to fill with warmth, with stories, and with a new kind of wealth, the kind that can't be counted, only felt. And Clara? She was no longer just the maid. She was family. Thank you so much for watching. This story is a beautiful reminder that the most valuable things in life are rarely things. It's the people who show up, who care, and who help us heal. If you enjoyed this story, please hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next video. We'll see you soon.